Most of us have a picture in our minds, and it is a dramatic scene. We see a great city in flames. We see barbarian hordes pouring through the gates. The mighty Roman Empire, the greatest the world had ever known, crashes down in a single fiery event. This is the story we often hear in movies and read in simple history books. It is a powerful image. It tells us that even the strongest empires can be destroyed in a moment of weakness. It is a story of a sudden, violent end to 1,000 years of power and glory. This is the myth of the fall of Rome. This popular story comes with a few common explanations. Some people say Rome fell because it became lazy, corrupt. They imagine emperors who only cared for parties and luxury, while the city rotted from the inside. Others point their fingers at the so-called barbarians. They claim waves of savage warriors, like the Goths' Vandals, simply overwhelmed the Roman legions with brute force. This version of the story gives us a clear villain. It paints a black and white picture of civilization versus chaos. It is easy to understand and makes for a good story, but it is not the full truth. It misses the more complicated and interesting reality of what happened. Another part of this myth is the idea of a single decisive date. Many people learn that Rome fell in 476, the year the last Roman emperor in the West, a young boy named Romulus Augustulus, was removed from power. This date is convenient. It gives us a neat endpoint for our timelines. It lets us close one chapter of history and start the next. But history is rarely so tidy. Pinning the end of a vast and complex civilization to a single day is like saying a giant old tree died the moment one final leaf fell to the ground. The tree was already dying for a long, long time before that. The truth is, these simple stories are just that. Stories. They are myths. They hide a more complex and fascinating reality. The idea of a sudden collapse, a single battle, one great moral failure is a tempting simplification. It gives us an easy answer to a very big question. How could something as powerful as Rome just disappear? But the real answer is not that simple, and it is far more instructive for our own time. The end of Roman power in the western part of the empire was not a single event. It was a long, slow process of transformation and decay. It was not a fall, but a failure. So, if Rome did not fall in a day, what really happened? The real story is less like a sudden explosion and more like a slow, complicated unraveling. It was not one single problem that brought Rome to its knees. Instead, it was a series of many interconnected problems that built up over centuries. Imagine a strong rope woven from many thick strands. For a long time, the Roman rope held strong. But then, one by one, the strands began to fray. A political strand weakened here. An economic strand snapped there. Over time, the entire rope became so weak that it could no longer hold the weight of the empire. This essay will be our journey to uncover that real story. We will move beyond the myths of a sudden collapse. We will look at the evidence historians have carefully examined. Our main idea is simple. The end of the Western Roman Empire was caused by multiple slow-moving failures that were all linked together. No single cause was responsible. Politics, money, society, the army, the environment. By understanding how these pieces fit together, we can see the full picture. It is a story of a system that slowly stopped working, not one destroyed overnight. We will explore these causes in a clear and simple way. First, we will look at the political instability that weakened the government from the inside. Then, the economic and social troubles that made life harder for ordinary people and drained the empire's wealth. We will see how a sick economy made it impossible to pay for a strong army or an effective government. We will also investigate military pressures on the frontiers, the movement of peoples, changes in climate, and disease. These were not simple invasions, but complex events that added stress to a system already breaking. By peeling back the layers of myth, we can learn a powerful lesson. Great, complex societies usually don't collapse overnight. They fail slowly, when many problems are ignored or left unfixed for too long. The story of Rome is not just about the past. It can teach us about challenges we face today. Let's begin by looking at the political rot that started to eat away at the heart of the empire. The Roman Empire was built around the idea of a single, powerful leader, the emperor. In the good times, a strong and wise emperor could bring peace and stability for decades. Figures like Augustus, Trajan. But what happens when the emperor is no longer strong or wise? What happens when the position of emperor becomes a prize to be won in a deadly game? This is exactly what started to happen in Rome. The system that was meant to provide stability became a source of constant chaos. The emperor's throne became a revolving door, and with each turn, the empire grew weaker. This problem became especially clear during a period known as the crisis of the 3rd century. This was a 50-year stretch where Rome almost tore itself apart. In this short time, there were more than 20 different emperors. Most of them did not die peacefully in their beds. They were murdered by their own soldiers, killed in battle against rivals, or assassinated by political enemies in the palace. An emperor's reign could last for years, or just for a few months. This constant turnover meant there was no long-term planning. No one could focus on building roads, securing borders, or fixing the economy when they were constantly looking over their shoulder, waiting for the next challenger to appear with an army at his back. Each time an emperor was killed, it often triggered a destructive civil war. A general in Britain might declare himself emperor, while another did the same in Syria. Their armies, which were supposed to be defending the frontiers from outside threats, were instead turned inward. Roman soldiers were now fighting and killing other Roman soldiers. These civil wars were incredibly costly. They wasted money, destroyed farmland, and killed thousands of the empire's best troops. While the Romans were busy fighting each other, the borders were left poorly defended. This made it easier for tribes along the Rhine and tribes along the Danube to raid Roman territory, adding even more pressure to a system already at its breaking point. This instability at the very top of the government had a ripple effect across the entire empire. If the emperor was weak or constantly changing, the whole structure of power became shaky. A governor in a distant province might not know who to be loyal to. A commander on the frontier might decide to take matters into his own hands. The constant political violence eroded the very idea of a stable, unified Roman state. The position of emperor, once a symbol of ultimate authority and order, had become a symbol of danger, division, and endless conflict. This political rot was the first major crack in the foundation of Roman power.